It begins with a heartbeat. Not his, theirs. The room is alive with danger, with whispers of men who kill without hesitation. Under a false name, the FBI agent takes his first breath as Michael Rizzo, a man who doesn't exist. The mansion smells of money and menace, its marble halls echoing with laughter that hides bullets. Tonight, he meets the Godfather, and the daughter who doesn't yet know shall be his undoing. What if the mission isn't to destroy the family, but to destroy himself? And when loyalty costs love, who dares to stay loyal? Morning light spills over the quiet mansion. The night's tension lingers like smoke. Ethan now has a seat at the table, but every glance from Luca feels like a bullet waiting to be fired. The Godfather's test begins. Loyalty through obedience, trust through silence. Ethan studies their hierarchy, memorizes every nod, every code. But when Isabella enters the room, his mission blurs again. She's elegance with an undertone of defiance, a woman born into chains she never asked for. He shouldn't look at her. He shouldn't care. But he already does. Ethan reports quietly to Dana in the dark of his motel room. Every word he speaks feels like betrayal. Yet every silence feels worse. He records details. The mansion's guards, the secret ledgers, the Godfather's coded phone calls. But his voice falters when he speaks. Isabella's name. Dana catches it. "You're getting attached," she warns. He lies. But both know the truth. The most dangerous thing about going undercover isn't the Mafia. It's forgetting who you really are. Night again. Ethan rides in the back of a black sedan with Luca beside him. They're heading to collect protection money, a first test of loyalty. Rain slaps against the windshield like warning drums. Luca's silence is heavy, his eyes colder than the rain. When they arrive, a frightened shopkeeper trembles as he pays up. Ethan watches quietly, pretending it's just business. But inside, the agent feels something breaking. He came to stop these crimes. Tonight, he became part of one. Back in the mansion, Ethan waits in the study, the faint sound of piano echoing down the hall. It's Isabella. Her music is soft, sorrowful, a confession without words. He follows the sound, drawn like a moth to fire. She turns, startled, but doesn't speak. For a moment they stand in silence, two worlds colliding under moonlight. He knows this can't happen. Yet something in her eyes tells him it already has. And somewhere in the shadows, a figure watches. Luca, unseen, listening. Weeks pass, and the mask begins to fit. Ethan now moves inside the Marino family like a trusted shadow. Collecting envelopes, managing shipments, earning nods of respect. The Godfather calls him Figlio, son. But every step closer to their trust brings him deeper into sin. He learns their codes, their schedules, their enemies. Still, it's Isabella's quiet defiance that catches him off guard. She speaks little, yet her eyes say everything. She knows this life is poison. The only question is, which one of them will drink it first? Inside a smoky back room of a club, Ethan meets the family's bookkeeper, a nervous man whose ledgers hold decades of blood and money. As he memorizes names and numbers, the lights flicker. The danger feels close now, pressing against the walls. Luca's gaze never leaves him, and Ethan realizes trust here is a temporary illusion. One wrong move, one wrong look, and they'll bury him where the music never stops. Outside, Isabella's laughter floats faintly through the air, unaware that her world is built on bones. Late that night, Ethan finds Isabella alone in the garden, barefoot under the moonlight. She's smoking, the glow of the cigarette tracing her sadness. Their words are cautious. Their silence is louder than truth. She speaks of her father's empire, of wanting to leave but fearing the void outside. Ethan listens, torn between duty and desire. When her hand brushes his, time seems to stop. He remembers Dana's voice. Never get personal. But it's too late. The line between the mission and the man begins to disappear. Morning comes, and with it blood. A rival family has struck one of the Marino trucks. Don Vito gathers his men. Rage replacing calm. Ethan stands in the circle, pretending anger he doesn't feel. Orders are shouted, names given. Luca volunteers to lead the retaliation. Ethan knows the FBI will intercept whatever happens next, but his own position depends on playing his part. As he loads his gun for the first time, he wonders if justice can survive when every path forward smells like gunpowder. That night, the retaliation unfolds. Cars roar through empty streets. Gunfire erupts in flashes of light and sound. Ethan plays his role, firing into the dark, blanks in his gun, truth hidden beneath smoke. When it's over, Luca claps him on the back, calling him brother. But Ethan can't feel triumph, only dread. In a single night, he's earned his place in hell. And from the mansion window, Isabella watches the chaos burn below, realizing the man she's falling for might be just as dangerous as the world she fears. Love begins like betrayal. Quiet, secret, inevitable. Weeks after the gunfight, Ethan and Isabella's stolen glances turn into whispers in the dark. She confides in him about her father's cruelty, the walls that keep her prisoner. He listens, knowing every word she says is evidence, yet every heartbeat tells him not to record it. They meet in hidden corners, moments stolen from fate. The agent and the daughter, enemies by birth, lovers by mistake. But love, in the world of the Marino family, is a death sentence. Every secret has a watcher. Luca begins to notice their glances, their hesitations. He follows Ethan one night, shadowing him through rain-soaked alleys. Meanwhile, Dana warns Ethan through the comms, "They're testing you. Don't slip." But it's already happening. His reports to the FBI shrink. His heart clouds his duty. When he finally returns to the van, drenched and shaking, Dana sees it in his eyes. "You're compromised," she says. Ethan doesn't answer. Somewhere deep down, he already knows. The Godfather announces a family dinner, a tradition for loyalty and respect. But tonight, it feels like a trap. Ethan sits beside Isabella, every nerve alert. Don Vito speaks in riddles about betrayal, his voice calm, his gaze sharp. Luca smiles faintly, knowing something Ethan doesn't. The air thickens with unspoken suspicion. When Don Vito raises his glass, Ethan mirrors him, but this time his hand doesn't shake. His fear has turned to steel. The game is on, and one wrong word could end everything. After dinner, Isabella finds Ethan on the balcony, the city lights stretching endlessly below. She tells him she knows he doesn't belong here. Not really. Her voice trembles with the truth she doesn't want to face. He tries to deny it, but she silences him with a kiss, desperate, fragile, and final. In that moment, Ethan realizes there's no turning back. Whatever happens next, love has become his biggest lie and his only truth. The next day, the world collapses. FBI intelligence reports that the Marinos have discovered a leak inside their circle. Don Vito summons everyone to the mansion. The air is electric, full of suspicion and fear. Ethan stands among killers, pretending calm while his heart drums a confession. Luca steps forward, naming a traitor. Not Ethan, but another man. The Don orders an execution on the spot. Blood splashes across marble. Ethan's face doesn't move, but inside his soul screams. Love, loyalty, justice, all of it is drowning in red. The killing changes everything. Fear spreads through the Marino family like wildfire. Every whisper is a threat. Every look, a question. Don Vito gathers his lieutenants for what he calls the blood oath. No one leaves until loyalty is proven. Ethan feels the walls closing in. The faces around the table are no longer comrades. They're wolves, sniffing for weakness. He tries to control his breathing, but his heart betrays him. Somewhere, deep in the mansion, Isabella prays. She can feel that the storm is coming. Outside the mansion, rain pours over the gardens as Isabella finds Ethan by the fountain. Her hands tremble as she pleads for him to leave, to disappear before it's too late. He shakes his head. His mission is almost over. The FBI needs one last piece of evidence. She looks at him like he's already dead. For a moment, she almost tells him she knows his secret, but she doesn't. Instead, she whispers, "If my father finds out, he'll kill you." Ethan answers softly, "He'll have to catch me first." The next morning, Ethan meets Dana in a deserted warehouse. She tells him the Bureau is ready to strike, but only if he can deliver the final proof: Don Vito's secret offshore account numbers. Ethan nods, knowing it means breaking into the Godfather's private office. He's already too deep to turn back. Dana sees it in his face. He's not the same man who started this mission. When she warns him about Isabella, he looks away. It's not part of the mission anymore, he says, and they both know it's true. That night, Ethan sneaks into Don Vito's study. The silence is heavy, the air thick with cigar smoke and fear. He unlocks a hidden drawer, pulling out the ledger, the one that could destroy the entire Marino empire. But as he photographs the pages, the door creaks open. Isabella stands there, her face pale, eyes wide. She doesn't need to ask what he's doing. The truth crashes between them like thunder. "You're one of them," she whispers. And in that moment, the man she loved becomes the enemy she can't forgive. Before Ethan can speak, Luca storms into the study with two armed men. Isabella screams, trying to block them, but Luca pushes her aside. Ethan grabs the nearest gun, chaos exploding in seconds. Bullets shatter glass, smoke fills the air. Ethan escapes through the balcony, injured but alive, disappearing into the night rain. Behind him, Isabella falls to her knees, sobbing. Luca comforts her, whispering, "He was never one of us." And somewhere in the distance, sirens begin to wail. The war between love and loyalty has begun. Morning breaks over chaos. The mansion is locked down. Don Vito rages like a wounded lion, demanding to know who leaked the ledgers. Luca insists it was Ethan, and now the family's empire trembles on the edge of collapse. Isabella stands silent in the corner, eyes red, heart broken in two. She knows the truth and hates it. The man she loved was the same man who came to destroy her father. In another life, he might have saved her, but in this one, he was her ruin. Meanwhile, Ethan hides in a safe house under FBI protection. His shoulder burns from the gunshot wound, his mind even more so. Dana briefs him on the next move. The raid is set for dawn. The Bureau will finally bring down Don Vito Marino. But Ethan can't celebrate. Every name in that file means death for someone Isabella loves. "You did your job," Dana tells him, but his silence says it all. The mission is over. The man is not. Back at the mansion, Luca convinces Don Vito to use Isabella as bait. "Hell come for her," he says, and he's right. She's locked in her room, guarded by men she's known all her life but no longer trusts. Rain begins again. It always rains when blood is near. Alone, she stares at the engagement, ring her father once promised to use as leverage for power. Now it feels like a chain. Now, if he comes back, she whispers to herself, "I'll kill him before they do." But her voice trembles with love. Ethan can't stay away. Against orders, he leaves the safe house and drives back to the mansion. He breaks in through the servants' gate, moving like a ghost through the halls he once called home. Upstairs, Isabella waits, torn between hate and hope. When their eyes meet, time fractures. She points a gun at him, hands shaking. "Tell me it wasn't all a lie." He steps closer. "It started as one," he admits, "but it didn't end that way." Her finger hesitates on the trigger as tears blur her sight. Before she can decide, Luca bursts into the room with his gun drawn. Chaos ignites. Shots thunder through the house. Ethan dives for cover, returning fire. One bullet finds Luca's chest, another shatters the chandelier above. When silence falls, Luca lies dead, and Isabella trembles in shock. Don Vito storms in moments later, face twisted in rage. Just as FBI sirens scream outside, the mansion erupts with flashing lights, breaking glass, and betrayal. As agents swarm the estate, Ethan turns to Isabella. "It's over," he whispers. But she only stares, love dying behind her eyes. The dawn breaks over fire and ruin. The FBI swarms the Marino mansion, agents in black storming through marble halls once filled with laughter and lies. Don Vito's empire crumbles in hours. Ethan moves through the chaos, wounded and haunted. He wanted justice. Now all he sees is destruction. Isabella is taken outside in handcuffs, not as a criminal, but as collateral done wrong. Gone wrong. The Godfather screams her name as he's dragged into a black SUV, his voice swallowed by sirens. The mission is over. The cost is eternal. Hours later, in an FBI interrogation room, Don Vito sits in silence. No lawyers, no words. Just the hollow stare of a king. Across the hall, Ethan gives his debrief. Dana watches him closely, knowing he's breaking apart inside. The Bureau calls it a success, a mission completed. But Ethan knows better. He didn't just destroy a crime family. He destroyed a woman's faith, her father, her world. As the agents file out, Dana whispers, "Go home, Cole." But he doesn't have one anymore. Isabella sits alone in a holding cell, wrapped in a gray blanket, her eyes hollow from sleepless nights. No one tells her what will happen next. She doesn't ask. When Ethan finally visits, she doesn't rise to meet him. There's nothing left to say that can undo the truth. He tries to explain, to apologize, but every word dies in his throat. She looks up once. Calm, Cole, final. "You were the only person I ever trusted," she says softly. "And you were never real." That sentence breaks him more than any bullet ever could. Weeks later, the headlines fade, and the Marino Empire becomes another closed case file. Ethan sits in his apartment surrounded by silence. The city outside moves on, but he can't. He replays every moment. The laughter, the touch, the lies. His badge sits on the table beside a half-empty glass of whiskey. He once believed undercover work meant pretending to be someone else. Now he realizes he no longer knows who he is. The reflection in the window stares back at him like a stranger. Wall. Then one night a letter arrives. No return address, just his name. Inside, a single photo of a seaside town in Italy and a short note. "Some things survived the fire." It's her handwriting. He stares at it for a long time, unsure if it's forgiveness or farewell. Outside, thunder rumbles across the city. For the first time in months, Ethan breathes deeply. The world hasn't ended. It's just quieter now. Somewhere out there, she's still alive. And that's enough. Years have passed. The world remembers the Marino Empire as a headline, a story long buried beneath newer crimes. But for Ethan, the memories never left. Now older, grayer, and quieter, he sits across from a journalist, ready to tell the truth for the first time. The camera rolls. His voice is calm, almost hollow. "I went undercover to bring down a monster," he begins. "But I became one in the process." The tape crackles softly, capturing not just his words, but the weight of everything he lost. He speaks about the mission, about loyalty and lies, about the fine line between justice and obsession. Each word drips with regret. The journalist listens silently, realizing this isn't a story about crime. It's a confession of love lost to duty. Ethan's hands tremble slightly as he describes Isabella. "She wasn't part of the case," he says softly. "She was the case. For a moment, his voice falters and silence fills the room, a silence heavier than any gunshot. Later, Ethan walks alone through a quiet park near the water. The city skyline glows behind him, distant and cold. He recalls the last time he saw Isabella's face, behind those prison bars, her eyes burning with heartbreak and truth. He wonders where she is now. Maybe Italy, maybe nowhere. The wind carries the faint scent of rain, just like that night. He closes his eyes and whispers, "I never stopped loving you." But only the wind answers back. The journalist finishes editing his interview and airs it under the title Undercover, the man who loved the Godfather's daughter. The story shocks the public, not for the crime, but for the heartbreak. Ethan watches it alone from his apartment, glass in hand. As Isabella's photo flashes on the screen, his eyes soften. "She made me remember what it meant to feel," he says to himself. Somewhere across the ocean, a woman sits in a quiet cafe, watching the same broadcast, and for a brief, silent second, their eyes meet through time. At sunrise, Ethan walks to the pier. The world is quiet, painted in gold. He holds the same photograph Isabella once sent, the seaside town, untouched by time. He places it on the railing, letting the wind take it. "Some things survive the fire," he whispers, smiling faintly. As the paper drifts into the waves, the camera pulls back. The man, the sea, the silence. Not all stories end with justice. Some end with peace. And for the first time in years, Ethan finally has both.